Good morning, LaNiqua McCloud. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you so much, Duane, for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a good morning here in Missouri. Looks like it's going to be a good day. So how long have we known each other, actually? It's going back,
2018.
yeah, so getting close to almost 10 years. Outstanding. Well, I know you well. Now, here's something I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to see your reaction in real time on the podcast when I said this. But I was talking with someone we both know this week while I was on a trip, and they said just casually, well, Lonnie's doing this and Lonnie's doing that. And I'm like, Lonnie, who's he talking about? And then it hit me. He's saying Lonnie as in LaNiqua. And I'm like, does she go by Lonnie and I don't know it?
Dude, that is my best way to shorten my name, but make sure people at least still know who I am.
How did I not know that?
Because you've always said my name correctly. So, a little bit, a tidbit here. For people that never said my name correctly, I always let them know, hey, just like call me Lonnie. Because from Lonnie, you get the qua. So, I figured like eventually they'll put the two and two together. And you've like always said my name correctly or in some sort of fashion correctly. So, I've never told you that.
All right. I thought maybe we just weren't that close. Now that's only for my friends, Duane. Only my friends call me Lonnie. Well, I know you well, but the folks who are watching don't. So if you don't mind, like tell me your story from where things started to how you actually decided to make the leap to become an author.
So I actually honestly got my journey started all the way back in 2015. I became a mother to a gifted child, and I went through the process of identifying what that looks like. I went through a lot of processes in terms of schooling and what that's supposed to look like. And I just over the years found different ways to either be proactive or found a different way to assist my child on their journey. And from that experience, I learned a lot about myself and also just how powerful I can be as a mom. And it's interesting is I never painted myself to be an author or anything like that. I just noticed that along my journey, a lot of other parents and moms were experiencing similar things, but didn't have, I want to say, like initially, like that inner spirit to kind of just go out and be an advocate and kind of push the bounds that they were given and the limits that they were given, especially in our school system. And so that's where I kind of led into like, okay, now I need to be sharing what I'm experiencing. And that took a long journey and it took years, actually. It took a long time.
Do you think that that's pretty common that there are people who are operating from a position of weakness when they're actually not as weak as they are?
I truly believe so. And you see it a lot more and you see it too often for me. And that's why have always at least tried to put myself in a position where I'm empowering others, especially whether it's with my story or helping them with any issue that they have and showing them like you are stronger than what you think. And sometimes it does take for something to come in and disrupt your whole life or disrupt the mindset that you initially had in order for you to see that strength. But that strength is within us.
So were there any key moments in your journey where you're like, I don't know if I can do this, but you found the strength to actually do it, and maybe you surprised yourself?
Absolutely. There were a lot of moments where, in all transparency, I just thought, like, how am I doing as a parent? And am I making the right decision? Am I the best fit? Just those internal kind of self esteem questions you ask yourself. And I went through a lot of those, and I've seen other mothers and other parents on their journey, and they had the similar experiences. And it wasn't until honestly, it wasn't until I got 100% pushed to my limit that I realized, okay, like, okay, I can do this. Like, I have to. I don't have a choice.
There's an old Yiddish proverb, and it says that God gives burdens, but he also gives shoulders. And I like that one a lot. There's a misconception of what God will do. Christians out there for the faithful. They talk about, well, God will never give you more than you can carry. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure he will. I'm pretty sure he has in my life. And the key is to recognize when that load is too much and then to look to the support system around you. How important has that been?
Important. I could have not gone through the journey of identifying for myself what this new future looked like while also assisting my child and implementing the things that they need without that support system. And in the beginning, I did not always have that support system. And then in some variation, I started getting the support system and didn't realize I had the support system. And then, like, towards the end is when I fully noticed, like, "Oh, right, okay, I have a village around me and we can all cohesively work together on this goal."
So tell us about the decision to actually write the book. What's
Hmm.
Tell us the name of the book and all that, and tell us how you made that decision.
So, I first started out with the title, and it came in a lot of different variations. But what initially prompted me to write the book was, again, me just noticing that I had that initial, I don't know if you want to call it fight or flight response, and just that initial fight in me to take on all the barriers that we were facing and look out for all those resources. And I noticed that throughout that journey, there were moms and parents that just didn't know. And so in my mind, I said, you know what? Let me put together a list of all the resources I went through, of all the people I've talked to, like the process I went through. And that list turned into somehow me wanting to actually like tell a story and be able to incorporate all the experiences I had along with what I noticed others were experiencing. And then the book came. But then the title for me was the one that took the longest because I was really trying to just dig deep and make sure that if I am going to release a book, I want everyone to be able to, in some fashion, relate. And so the book is called Birth of an Advocate, Living Above the Spectrum. And I noticed that throughout my like conversations with different parents and different moms, they would always refer to the spectrum being so hard and it didn't matter what point the child was on the spectrum, how challenging it was. And so in my thought process, I found myself saying, like, well, why don't we just live above it? Like, why don't we just make our own? Like, why don't we just figure out what that spectrum looks like for us instead of what, like the paper cut one size fits all diagnosis is just telling us. And that's where the part of living above the spectrum came from. And I just told myself that's our mantra. Like that's literally our family mantra. Like every day, how are we going to do this? How are we going to live above the spectrum?
So what was the process like? I mean, you start deciding I'm going to do this. What was next? Then, of course, writing it. Did you find an editor, a publisher? What'd you do next?
Oh my gosh, I spent a long time. I want to say a little bit over a year just piecing together from the list that I was already creating and the stories and the experiences I had, piecing those together. And then I realized I don't know what I'm doing. I've never written a book before. So I actually had to reach out to one of my close friends who is a professor. And I asked her, I'm like, hey, can you help me? Like, just look over this. Like, tell me what you think. I had a lot of peer review people, which initially turned out to be my village that was aware and got to see the journey over the years. And she was the one person that didn't have the full picture, so I knew I would get, like, a honest, like, first response from her, and so through her business and partnering with her, she, assisted me with the editing portion, which again is like, I'm new to this, I don't know what I'm doing. I know what I wanna say, but I wanna make sure, again, it's relatable, and then I also realized, Duane, it's the subject is so heavy and the content is so heavy that I wanted it to be as concise and as direct and relatable as possible. And so I went from a 4 chapter book to a actual like in the terms of my 4-chapter book being like really thick and really heavy, I got this idea from actually looking at another mom that had wrote a book and she created a coffee book. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that's it. Like wouldn't want to pick up like just a small coffee book about a topic that they're probably not familiar with, or for the parents and moms that are familiar with it, but they can get a little bit of resources and a little bit of insights and supports from someone who has been through the journey and seen others go through the journey. So my coffee book was birthed and alive. And that honestly, that whole process doing took me about 3 years with me
Three
piecing
years.
everything together. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's impressive because there's a lot of people who frankly wouldn't stick with something for 3 years. There are people who have a hard time posting on Twitter every day and they're trying to build a following, you know. Just doing something consistently for 3 years, that shows your dedication and your commitment to this project. How's it
It's going. I've gotten a lot of feedback and I've also gotten a lot of the initial like, comments from like, "Oh my gosh, like, I had no idea, like, I didn't know, and if this is what you're experiencing, like, I had no idea, and it's amazing that you experience all this and you're sharing this." And I really just also had to give, a lot of credit to the other moms in the Facebook group and the other parents that I got to talk to along the journey also, as the years went on. And I'm seeing it evolve. And I'm also seeing that the topic of autism spectrum is much more easy to talk about now. And it's heavily in TikTok and social media. And so it honestly worked out in perfect timing for me to finally decide to release a book because I felt like the market was more receptive to it.
So you're still working as a trainer. You've been working as a trainer for years now. Can you talk about some of the things that you've learned in writing the book and in being a mother to a special needs child that you're actually seeing translate really well over to acting as a trainer in your areas?
The biggest piece for me is the empowerment portion. Like I have always been able to be in a space to train others and empower them to, fight their own battles and figure out how to challenge the barriers that they have and in turn it along the way and along the years it turned into a situation where it's like, well, I've been doing this for myself also, so like why haven't I been able to like share it and be comfortable and confident enough to be able to share it. And so in junction with all the skill sets that I provide everybody else, I had to, hold the mirror up to myself and say, hey, you have those skill sets too. Like you train people on how to have these skill sets. So why not just do it? And honestly, my role as a trainer is what contributed to the push that I felt in just releasing it and showing everyone like that you have a journey of becoming an advocate. And that's why I love the title that I picked, which is The Birth of an Advocate.
I think a lot of times people find themselves in training roles. And I'm not saying this is a majority of the time. I haven't done any studies. I could be completely wrong. But I think often what you see in the training world is somebody's really good at their job. They excel at it, they enjoy it, they may be doing it better than anyone else. And so the leadership of the organization says, "Hey, we should have them train. We should have them go train everyone how to do this." And sometimes doing and training, they're just different things. And they find themselves unable to make the transition from maybe the sales leader to the training manager. And they can find themselves overwhelmed with this. And I like the idea first that we have this community here at Lessons from Learning Leaders where we talk about these things, we walk through them, but there's other communities out there also. There's a subreddit on training that you can go and you can ask them questions. So it goes to me, it translates right there where we can find people who are overwhelmed and maybe flailing and their their internal imposter syndrome is telling them you can't do this. You are going to fail. You're not prepared. And much similar they can say, well, this burden's too heavy. I can't carry it, or they can say I need help. So I think
To
that
your point, Duane, I experienced all of that, and I seen other moms experience that, and it's a continuous journey, and you have to learn how to be okay with the failure that comes with it, and I think that's what also a lot of people are afraid of, that failure piece. And it was interesting because, like, as a trainer, I wasn't scared of failure, but then in this section, the more personalized, now have to be more public facing sector, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is different."
it's a delicate line to try and balance on between confidence and humility and, to say I can handle this, but then to look at something new and say, okay, I can't handle this. I can carry part of it, but I'm going to need help. So I'm thinking about other things. What about the fact that you talked about there being the spectrum and then being above the spectrum? And I go back to the individuality. Each one of these kids, for each one of these moms and dads, they're all unique. They're all individuals. And you see that also when you start looking at training. And you've seen situations, you've probably dealt with curriculum that seems to be a one size fits all. You're just going to go in and you're going to train everybody the same way and you're going to treat everybody the same way. And the expectation is at the end of it, you've delivered content. Everybody must be trained. But you've done your job. That idea translate for you over to when you're standing in front of a group of people that you're about to speak to.
Oh, I am the rebel for a cause. I chose to be more aware that although what leadership wants to see is just the ending outcome of the content being delivered and not necessarily the learning journey that the participants are going through. And I started picking up those cues that I'm not 100% feeling fulfilled in just the outcome of, like, I was here, I did the training, now everybody should just be able to just go do. And I noticed for me, I had to put myself in their shoes a lot and think about, like, what really should I walk away with being here with myself today? I literally would just go straight for, I need to be as relatable as possible, but then I also want to make sure that I have a connection. I don't want to just be training to an audience that I don't have a connection with. And so putting in that groundwork of establishing a connection while also making sure that I'm hitting all the content markers that's expected is definitely how I've positioned myself as a trainer to make sure that I can see the outcome. I know from my training someone feels empowered and they went and did A, B, C, D. And I've been in just a blessed position to see that over the years. And so I've decided to not change that mindset.
What would you tell someone who's new to training going into the classroom for the first time based on what you've learned, based on the lessons from your book, and based just from your own experience in training?
Utilize yourself and the journey that you took to get there. And also, don't forget, and it might be cliche because a lot of people use the word and we use it a lot too, but don't forget that your purpose in that instance is empowerment and not for yourself, but for the others. And from that, you can easily find yourself being in a much more beneficial position between who you're training and then the growth you'll have as a trainer. I can't tell you again, just how blessed I've been able to feel with the growth that I've had as a trainer over the years and the growth I will continuously have. Like, I'll never stop learning. And that's a big piece that I always try to tell new trainers, never stop learning. You 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 can't have growth if you're not going to want to learn more.
There's some humility in there too, in recognizing I don't know everything. I don't have it all locked down. And I'm glad you mentioned journey before too. Something that I read just recently, I think it was in Cues by Vanessa Van Edwards. I could be wrong. Could be another book. Cues is right over there. The question that she asked was she recommended the question, how did you get there? When you're exploring someone's position, whether it's influence or in sales, the question, how did you get there? Powerful question because they will generally answer in the journey to where they got to that position, and you can start getting more insights. So if you're working in a group and someone's saying we absolutely should not be doing this, and your training says they absolutely should be doing this, then there needs to be humility to say maybe my curriculum's wrong. Maybe they know something I don't. Their journey's different than mine. And so then you ask that question, well, how did you come to that conclusion? And it could be, well, I saw Joe do it, and when he did that, it shocked him so bad his shoes shot off. I don't know. I'm just making something up. But there's that journey they're on too. And each one of these kids that you talk about has their own life, their own experiences, their own journey. And there needs to be in the classroom a respect for that journey, a respect for each participant's experience. And not only a respect for it, but a desire to pull it out and have it contribute to the class as well.
Yes, and it's a funny thing. And I honestly have said this like when I'm training about anything in education. I always start off with I truly believe that all of us need an individualized education plan. And I would always say that for a reason because we really do. You can't have this one size fits all approach as we talked about with the spectrum and with educational settings and even with your own desire to want to grow. There has to be, so I was just saying before, you have to just want to not be confined to that one size. And again, that comes with just a lot of confidence and a lot of desire and a lot of understanding that you're not going to always know exactly where this journey leads or how it's going to fit in the overall scheme of things, but also being comfortable with the journey and trusting the process.
So what's next for you? What's next in your journey?
What's next? So I am diving more into wanting to really do more work in my community. For me, that just comes by a way of opening up a space so that I can help coach other moms and parents as they are going through their journey of what I like to call in the four steps of like you have the diagnosis and then you have your resource person and then you have the person where you journey into becoming an advocate and then that last step is the advocacy journey you have and then you needing to share that journey with others. And so I truly believe in those four key points in this process and I am looking to just open myself up more so that I can be a resource for other moms and parents.
Well, I look forward to seeing it. I've enjoyed everything that we've been able to do together while we've worked together. So I'm proud of you putting this book together, and I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.